Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you so much. And it's an afternoon, and then again, it's on Friday. So this will be the technical part, I believe so, because we are going into the, understanding the system, how we will be able to collect the data and rank, all these data. So like Richard has said, let me pick a point from here. Like in every 10 Kenyans, 4 today faces poverty challenges. And therefore, I believe, programs like enhancing a registry actually ensures that no vulnerable household is left invisible. So that's why we collect this data in readiness or preparation for you to use. So my name is Shaban Alawi. I will actually share this presentation with Patricia Muleshe. So we will be brief technically. In terms of the enhancing registry, first of all, we need to understand it's a database that contains, socio-economic data for the poor and vulnerable Kenyans. So our outline as follows: the rationale why we needed this, the objectives again, the functions, what it does, growth plan, how we intend to grow, in terms of this data. Increase the numbers. There are also small area poverty estimates. You remember we work with KNBS, but we are mandated to collect the data of the poor and vulnerable Kenyans. But then the Kenya National Bureau of Statistics are the one that give us, estimates. Like, in location A, we have this number of households that you need to collect this data. So we also guided. We don't go out there and collect the data as we want. And then what actually entails, in terms of the questionnaires is what we call the harmonized targeting tool. And then we have data collection approaches. How do we collect our data even if we go down to that location, sub-location, and the village level? And then again, the most important aspect is the data sharing protocol. We all familiar with what we call the Data Protection Act of 2019, right? Yeah, in terms of the subjects, and the data processors. So we also have, in our department, in terms of the ESR, what we call the data sharing protocol. So why do we need to have the enhancing registry? Of course, we understand it's a delivery system that actually incorporates, like what I have said, inclusive life cycle approach for the social protection. I wouldn't want to dwell this, much deeper into this. We understand the safe cycle approach, right? In the morning, my colleague Richard has shown us from, child to the adulthood, up to the older age. So it's a cycle. It encompasses data for, each and every one of us, including the youths. And then again, of course, it looks at, structured ways in terms of the income security, which Richard has clearly elaborated in the morning. And then the social health in terms of the health insurance subsidy program, right? The SHA, of course, shock responsive, social protection, in the ASAL context, in terms of, either whether the drought or even any disasters in terms of emergencies. And then the complementary social protection program. So they are cash plus program that government are working, on, even the non-state actors are working on in terms of partners that, earlier on, were not addressed. But now these, 4 pillars will be able to address all these things, and it will be reported nationally, of course, through this system, where we will be able to address multiple determinants in terms of vulnerability and the poverty. Then the second rationale is harmonization of the collection of the data from households. So harmonization in the sense that, let me use a very good example. We have Huduma Center, right, in Kenya. What it does, it's like a one-stop shop. So we are collecting all this data to eliminate overlaps so that you can get all this, what you need from one shop, and this is the ESR, so that we also reduce the community fatigue, so that Sukun, right? When Suku wants probably, maybe for example, want to collect data somewhere, let me use in Samburu, they'll not often, go back there, or even other organization go back there, because it creates fatigue to the community. Like every other organization asking, the question, why are you actually, coming here today? There was another one. You create fatigue to the community and even affect their livelihood. But then for the purpose of this, to be used in terms of efficient resource, again, so data was harmonized for you to allow for this to be actually at one stop, which is the ESR data. So it also links policies. You have seen, what it does, and of course, so that it will have to cover different social protection interventions. So it also aligns the social protection sector 2010 constitutional realities. I want to be very clear because we are here because of older persons, right? The senior citizens. And then the good thing the director alluded to the Act articles, right? He started with Article 50? 57. So remember now we are within this context in terms of the 2010 constitutional realities. And of course there's also Article 21. 21 talks on? Yeah? Tuko pamoja. 21 talks on? Vulnerable what? Groups. Within that, older persons, there are people who are vulnerable. And of course, the existing government policies, which has been mentioned here in the morning in terms of the legal framework, and then, the development government agenda for the day, what we call the better, right? So it also transformed the NSMP, NSMP, those are national safety net programs, into a more responsive program, effectively, efficiently, which will be able to meet the needs of vulnerable Kenyans, in terms of harmonizing and targeting of the beneficiary in terms of the household. So you don't need to go and, target. We have done this for you. Yours is to utilize. So we have really, in terms of you spending your resource, time, we have, reduced that time so that you can be able to go, collect this, take this data and be able to go and do that interventions. We also develop and implement standardized tools and procedures for targeting beneficiaries. This one I've mentioned right now again. I don't want to repeat. So objectives of the Enhancing Registry is to promote social protection policies or program that links individual to different protection. Again, this is along the life cycles. You have had, all these programs. There are very many programs for the orphans and vulnerable children, older persons, hunger safety net for arid and semi-arid, and there are persons with disability. So all these, are in the data, and it links to various policies. So it also enables program rollout specific responses. For example, was it last week? Yeah, last week, but one. We were in Tana River, and some of my colleagues were in Garissa, where we supported, a team, a consortium called ACTED and SND that are working in ASAL counties that are actually doing what we call emergency and drought response. So it was a short time because, when the drought comes in, you don't need, it's a sudden thing. You need to, respond very fast. So we reduced that time, and, it was so effective that they have also done their cash transfer in less than, 2-3 weeks. So that is what we call, emergency or shock situation, in specific counties, geographical locations. We were able to, help, in terms of boosting resiliency, expand beneficiary base, and then there were also no duplication in this manner because these are data that actually in the registry. So it also collects data for potential beneficiaries, but I would say that we said potential beneficiaries are person in need. So remember that we have two types of data in the Enhancing Registry. So there's what we call the Integrated Beneficiary Registry. So the Integrated Beneficiary Registry hold the data for the NSMP, the National Safety Net Program beneficiaries. Those are Inua Jamis, including, the Hunger Safety Net Program. There is what we call also the Social Registry, where, we have the data for the person in need that were not targeted. They are not in the government program. So these are pool of data. The people who are needy, but then again, because of the resource again, in terms of the needy, they are poor, they are extreme poor, they are very poor, and they are also good, right? So these are not extreme poor, but they are poor. So whenever, any actors comes in, they could be able to find, or rather request the data in terms of, vulnerability, we're able to give them. Remember we said ours is to identify, but the program will come with the eligibility criteria. So we also collect data which facilitate linkages to complementary services, of course, in programs like social and economic inclusions. So like I've said, there are programs that are cash plus, where we are able to, help the beneficiaries so that they'll be able to graduate from one level to another in terms of, coming out of the poverty. So there are also that are nutritional sensitive, in terms of, nutrition counseling, of course, which comes with some cash transfers that we're able to help them. So these are the programs, not only for the government, but they're also for non-state actors, which we are able to, of course, probably report in the case of this. Because, you know, previously, as you can see, if you are familiar with the 2011 Kenya Social Protection Policy, you'll be able to see their differences. By this one now, the 2023 has really taken care of these complementary services in terms of facilitating these linkages on how we will tap on this potential report to what is happening in terms of the non-state actors, the intervention that they're doing on the ground. So the objective is also help programs select and provide services. Of course, you understand that the data that we collect, of course, in terms of the eligibility criteria that you guys, you know, in case of a request of the data or any organization they give, we are able to give them standardized and quality data that undergone what we call the third-party quality assurance, so that, you know, the right people are timely, you know, and well-targeted. So what are the functions of the enhancing registry? So I'll be too technical. I'll be explaining a little bit, but you'll be able to understand it's a system. So the best thing, Richard has already explained, you know, most of the things. So I'm assuming you also are familiar with so many things here. So the function itself is to serve as an integral part of the delivery social protection that actually will broadly boost social policy for poor and vulnerable Kenyans. So this system actually integrates with so many systems for the government, what we call the National Registration Bureau. There is also vital statistics in terms of the deaths and the births. There are also other what we call the consolidated cash transfer management information systems. Several systems, you know, that deals with the cash transfers, and they're also open to any system from the government that will be linked. We are also thinking of, you know, help being linked here through what we call the application program interface, so that, you know, once they'll be able to give us the eligibility criteria, they will tap this data directly from our, you know, server, and they'll be able to, you know, do the intervention upon the request. So it also built on what we call the single registry reporting. Single registry, you know, was a registry that was used zamani. It's only for National Safety Net Program, what I call the integrated beneficiary registry. Ikona data ya inua jamii pekee, sawa sawa. So zamani ilikuwa ina, but then again we build on this where we came up with the enhancing registry. This time now, this one has a reporting module in terms of monitoring. You can also query function, you know, function in the querying the function. You know, if you search something in your phone, right? Kama WhatsApp, tuelewane, unaweza query na upate namba ya mtu, sindio majina la mtu in your contact. So this one, once we query with your ID, we'll be able to get so many details, you know, in terms of that household. So this actually enhances reporting across the social protection sector. The system also supports the data sharing, of course, through ESR synchronization of different sources. So that one, my colleague will delve deeper into that. She'll be able to explain. And then in terms of the matching criteria and attributes, I've just mentioned. It also enables data matching, like I've said, with other databases, kama hiyo ya National Registration Bureau, for the purpose of interoperability. So we are actually working with the Social Health Authority. Like, you know, we used to have that interoperability with former NHIF, but now since, you know, the body is new, we are working towards to achieve this in terms of SHA. So that is the discussion and the work in progress, including the help and others that I have not mentioned. So the growth plan. So in terms of, you know, this registry, how do we intend this registry to grow? In the morning, I've said that, you know, each and everyone, in terms of if you are a Kenyan, you can be able to apply regardless of your status. Now, first of all, there are programs that we have worked with where we call the immediate client program needs at county and the national level to register, or rather sometimes to also help us to recertify the beneficiaries. Recertification means, you know, when beneficiary actually is deceased, you know, sometimes we might not be able to go down there. So when the programs goes down there, they'll be able to, use our system to update, and then it will reflect from. They say, remember I said, you know, some of these programs work through the APIs. No wonder when you use your mobile phone to transact through the Pesa link, unaona account ina reduce. So such a thing. So immediate client program, this basically is where we use programs, not only state programs, there are also non-state programs and partners. Like we have worked with the Kenya Red Cross to do so many things in terms of this. They were able to update our data from the end because we use what we call the APIs. And then again, there are also programs that we have worked, they give us the feedback, we are able to update from us as long as they have what we call the management information system. So the program will be tied to, will talk to each other. What is done on the ground will also be updated up here. So the number of overall poor at the county level means that I've just said this data in terms of the estimates we are provided by the Kenya National Bureau of Statistics. So if the survey now today comes and remember even in Nairobi there's that vulnerability, right? And tells us in Nairobi the vulnerability is at 39% in some of the locations. We are getting this report from Kenya National Bureau of Statistics. Our question is to ask ourselves, how do we go up there to update our data? Remember, in the Act, we have said the data is real time. So that is how we go about, because this we are given what we call the small area poverty estimates that actually help us to update this data in terms of going to different geographical locations, in terms of location, sub-location, and the certain villages. So we had a program called Kenya Social Economic Inclusion Program 1, which started in 2019 and ended in 2024. So we were able to yearly stagger the process in terms of populating the registry. So we are talking of year 1, where we started with the ASAL counties, where Hunger Safety Net program registration exercise started in 4 ASAL counties, which you already know. So those ones were updated in year 1. In year 2, it was rolled out, to complete the 2 non-HSMP counties, that is Makuena and Vihiga, where, this data collection happened. And then again, there were 4 other additional counties which were added for the Hunger Safety Net program. These were Garissa, Samburu, Tana River. Therefore, Samburu, Garissa, Tana River. I don't recall the last one. Yeah. So there are 4. But when I'll remember, I'll be able to say this. So in year 3, we did 17 non-HSMP. Non-HSMP means, these are the ones that, are not in Inua Jamii programs. So these are Inua Jamii actually areas. So year 4, we updated 32, and year 5, we completed 39. That makes it how many counties? 40? We have how many counties in Kenya? 47. So we have the real, updated data as at now. So we have the data for the 47 counties. By just by a click of a button, we will be able to, showcase or provide you with the data upon the request. But it takes time in terms of processing this data, because there are a lot of things that we might need to look at in terms of credibility of the organization. So KSEP 2 now comes in to the issue is we have the data in 47 counties. What next, right? So we thought of that, and KSEP 2 came in. But then again, we say it's about utilization of this data in terms of the interventions. Probably the question that you guys want to ask, how do we continue to update our data? So KSEP 2 talks on 2 things. How we will continuously update our data through the registry. Of course, there will be what we call the on-demand registration, which I'll show you that, people or even someone who wants to apply for this will be able to apply as the board comes in. And then once you do this, if you agree, you'll be able to update yourself. We are in the process of actually looking at a way which will be able to what we call the citizen-centric, approach or systems. You are able to sit down there and apply through USSD or even the mobile app. So we are looking into that so that, or rather, those who cannot be able to do, because the government looks at so many factors, will be able to present themselves in social development or National Council of Person with Disabilities Office or even the Children Office, and then be able to apply through the officers. So this process actually, it's system-to-system updates. Once you do that from the other level, it will be able to reach us at the office. And then we have what we call the ESR operation manual, basically what we call, our Bible. We are supposed to overall update the data after every 4 years. But then again, this is very expensive, right? After every 4 years. But then that is what the manual tells us. So the most basic approach that we do is to collaborate with stakeholders or even the partners to be able to regularly update this. So I've talked about the small area poverty estimates. Basically, I'll just shed a light on it. It's a statistical estimate which rank our geolocation as per their poverty level. Remember I told you the estimates, right? Which we have been provided by the Kenya National Bureau of Statistics. So these small area poverty estimates are the lowest level that the Kenya National Bureau of Statistics has given us the estimate. It's location level, right? And then in the location, you know that they are sub-located. They are also villages. So meaning we are going down that level. So there is that purpose of, inclusion, right? So that we will not have exclusion. So I've talked about the source. I wouldn't talk about the estimates again. I've just summarized. So there's what we call the harmonized targeting tool. What we use in the mobile app are, we recruit the enumerators, of course, for a period of 2 weeks. They go out there, collect the data, and then there are areas, that we look at. So this is a standardized form for the purpose of identification and inclusion of poor and vulnerable households, for the purposes of, use in terms of the program intervention. Of course, in due regards of the eligibility criteria. So this data in terms of the social registry, like we have said, it is collected digitally. We don't want you guys to go out and use the form, because we also want to eradicate people doing something wrong. So you have to do it while you're in that household, do everything and submit the data. It has a questionnaire with 64 parameters that actually looks at the contacts, names of the relatives, births, and it's also measure economic characteristics, of course, and specific needs in terms of the access to sewage, type of water that supplies your home, and so forth. So we have been advocating for this over the years because it's a 64 parameter. We have been working, with many stakeholders to ensure that inclusion of all social protection programs requirements are actually embedded in this. And of course, I'm happy to say that we are actually in the process of reviewing this harmonized targeting tool, and we will invite you also to give your input in terms of the older person for this purpose in future. So targeting, in terms of the targeting approach under the ESR. So what do we do? How do we go about our business? So there are 3 areas that the Kenya National Bureau of Statistics or approaches provide us, so that we are also guided. They are the one mandated to guide us in terms of the data in Kenya. So what the 3 criteria that we actually undertake are what we call census and mass registration, and then again on-demand registration. So as you can see here, that door, census is where we go door-to-door register, meaning in ASAL areas where the drought and everything is prevalent, the estimates were higher. So meaning the poverty rates were, or head count were, greater than 50%. So we are mandated to do, census. We sweep all the areas, right, to have each and everyone that will be on board, provided that they are voluntarily consented to collect the enumerators to collect the data. So there are mass registration. There are areas that we feel there are pockets of areas that are poor. Not we feel in terms of the poverty estimate that we are given by the KNBS. For example, here in Nairobi, where are the areas that you feel that the vulnerability is there? Sorry? Okay, let's say Kibra, right? So probably those are pockets, right? That is where we need to go and do what we call the mass registration. This basically means the poverty rate or head count is between 30 and 50%. So when the KNBS give us this data, we are able to go to do that. But how do we do this? It has also its own process. Mass registration is where we are able to, do the barazas, community barazas, sensitize the community, and from there we do what we call the listings exercise, where we are able to take the names of the household or even the nicknames, and then we will be able to upload it into our data. Then thereafter, we recruit the enumerators. Enumerators will be able to download this data and visit each and every household that were listed at the site. And then again, on-demand registration or application, this is where you bring yourself to the office at the lowest level, we have the sub-county officers, like I've told you, either the social development officer or the children officer, who are able to register you, once you are in those designated offices. Like I have said, we are also coming up with the process of, a citizen-centric approach where you can be able to do this manually, digitally, in terms of your convenience in areas that you are, just to take care of each and everyone. Here is where the poverty or head count is less than 30%, meaning there are not many people. So we are supposed to, people should be able to take themselves to various offices or even be able to do it, by their own. So we have what we call the ESR data sharing protocols. Of course, this is for the purpose of, the organization that might or want, to use this data in future. And this one, I'll just do it, up to the legal framework, and my colleague will come in. So the current data sharing mechanisms is what we are going to showcase you. Its purpose and the objectives again, and then the legal framework. And lastly, we will look at, components of the data sharing protocols. So the current data sharing mechanisms that we have in at the NSPS is what we call the Enhancing Registry Application Program Interface. We have just told you, we collaborated with many government agencies. And once we share this data, because it's a system that is connected together, we don't give them manually CSV or what we call the Excel file. So this system will be able to, process this data from our system server to their own server so that they'll be able to do it, or rather to have what we call a raw data. That means, there are no information that will be touched as it is. There's also enhancing the registry, like, we are able to extract the CSV or Excel file and be able to give you, for your own interventions for these purposes. And then the other complementary services. This one, we are still working on it, but we provide data to any organization or even rather complementary service providers, of course, in terms of the cash plus that are able to utilize. And this, again, we give it to the partners, with the various programs such as Cash Plus. So what is the purpose of this data sharing protocol? And I've just mentioned that we have Data Protection Act, right? So do you want us to use your data different? Do you want us to give your data to any person to use anyhowly? So the law should protect you. So whoever will request this data has also obligation in terms of the Data Protection Act, where there is data usage, limitations, and even, disposal. So it provides, or rather it gives us secure and confidential sharing of information. So the information that we give you is a very sensitive data, so you should make sure that, take care of this, and you will be you will be able to share this in terms of their confidentiality, because we ask the consent from the beginning when we are doing the data collection. When we come to the household here, let me say this is an household. So we ask the head whether we will be able to collect this data, and we ask for which purpose, and for the purpose in terms of even after having this data, we also ask for another consent, whether we will be able to share this data of this household with a government actor or non-state actors that will be able to use this data for their own intervention. So there are two ways of consent, from the beginning and at the end. So it also ensures personal information, of course, will be handled in a very sensitive manner, and can only be disclosed on a need to know or need to use basis as per the Data Protection Act. And we also provide where partners might be able to ask anonymized data just about the individual beneficiary member. This is also a transparent procedure, of course, to increase the usage for social protection program. And then we also ensure that the rights of the program beneficiary, of course, especially their privacy, is not infringed. So we are very, sensitive about this. When we're also doing our community-based validations, we need to mask, some of information that might not be disclosed. Of course, something like names are what we call out, but then again, the mobile number, the ID number, we need to mask this once we provide this data with. So, in terms of the legal framework, Remember, Richard has talked about many legal frameworks, including social protection. But then again, there is what we call, for the data protection, there are so many in terms of the Kenyan Constitution. Under Article 31, if you find time, look at Article 31. You know, it will give you people right not to have information relating to their family or private affairs unnecessarily revealed. That's why I think even in the morning, when we are taking the photo, we were asked, or rather you have given consent on the form. So there's also Kenya Data Protection Act, which have, you know, principles underneath to make sure that the data are safeguarded. And then there are also United Nations guidelines concerning computerized personal data files. You also know there is a Cybercrime Act and misuse, right? So that will not be able to misuse, you know, your data. So in a nutshell, that is enhancing the registry, but I wanted to show you something about the tool, just a glimpse. So I will not be able to, walk you through this, but then again, you can see these are the questionnaire that we use in terms of geographical identification, just to make sure that, you know, we capture each and every one. County, of course, sub-county, location, sub-location, and even the village. And then there's what we call the dwelling and households. So we ask so many things about your dwelling, your household, whether you have how many habitable rooms. This is actually, we are being guided by the Kenya National Bureau of Statistics. We took directly what was in the census. However, we customized with the stakeholder what will be applicable to social protection. So I wouldn't, we will share this with the team. I don't want to take much time on this. And there are also household demographics, whether, you know, you have gone to school, does the household head have ID or not? Just to make sure, you know. So like what Richard was actually telling us in terms of the proxy means test. So all these parameters are weighed, you know, their coefficients are weighed so that it will come up with the wealth ranking. And it is this wealth ranking, the program will sit down and of course give a scale of 1 to 10. So when, you know, 1 to 5 may probably are areas that are extreme poor or poverty, we are able to say 1 is more poor than 2. So up there 10 is well off, right? So that will be able to eliminate, you know, and of course in terms of program eligibility, you are able to come up with your own ranking. So to finalize on this, so this is what we have in the data at the moment. This is single registry only, social registry. But then there is the IBR. So as you can see, my colleague will also talk on to this again. Just a glimpse. Average household size in Kenya at this point, or in terms of this data that we have, we assume at 3.96. So it's 4, right? That is what we think. Of course, this might change. It's dynamic. So household members, right now we have a 17,601,000. Remember, 4.4 is a household, registered household. And then if I'll tap onto the sex in terms of female and male, this will change. Just to show you that, you know, it's up-to-date data. So as you can see, the older persons in terms of the social registry. When I say social registry, these are person in need or potential beneficiary. But then there is another one. I know it will take time I don't have time to showcase all these, but these are things that are actually in place. Just to show you. So I'm trying to see if it changes. I just, you know, tapped on the female. So you should be able to change this number. Can you see? It just changed. It's taking time to extrapolate the data from the server, and it did change for the female. So if I go to male, again, it will change. So when we say real time, this is what we are working on. But then again, currently, we are in the process of, working with what we call the all the MISs from the government to, what we call the interoperability, so that, this system will interoperate, works together, right? So that it will give us real data in terms of the integrated beneficiary registry. Because what we call the CCTP MIS, Inua Jamii data, they collected this data way before even we were actually employed. So meaning now, for enhancing our registry, we started in 2021. So you will be able to see there's a different deficit, but it's a work in progress, so that, of course, by the end of next month, because we want to work on recertification, we'll be able to, make sure that, this system will be synced and interoperate very well. So let me call this juncture my colleague to also go through some of the vital points in terms of the remaining data sharing.
And because of that, please let us stretch our legs kidogo as we welcome Patricia to do a very brief presentation. Yeah? Tusimame tafadhali in the room. Let us march a little bit. Stretch your legs. Stretch your legs. Very good. Okay.
Okay, thank you so much. As Patricia is preparing, I just want to let you people know that for ESR, we are receiving a lot of countries from Africa coming to learn on our ESR. Even last week, a team from Botswana spent a whole day with us. They wanted to learn on the policy, which I took them through, and even the ESR. So it is good to really get what it is about, because the moment you'll go for social protection somewhere in Africa, you'll be asked about ESR. So let us have it in mind. He has said he'll share, so that at least once you are representing Kenya out there, you can explain what is in the ESR. So let us take note. We receive many countries. Thank you.
Hello. Tumestretch kweli? Sijaona. Madam alichukua microphone akaongea kabla to stretch. So all of us to stretch a bit, ndo tusilale. Okay. Tunaweza kaa. So my colleagues have taken you through the board, the act, the policy, the board, and Shaban has taken us through the registry, which is a central depository of all the vulnerable persons in the country. So mine will be to tell you how now we use that data for the purpose of the vulnerable in the society. So I'm going to tell you how we collect the data, we process it, we store, and then we share. What is entailed in that? So the components of the data sharing protocols and agreements is as follows. Why? The purpose and disclosure of taking the data. We usually seek for consent from the beneficiaries. Sorry, I was told it is persons in need. From the persons in need, we notify them on how the data will be used. I'm going to take you through how we are going to store the information, the distribution of the information processing, the security of the information, and how to access the data. So data sharing is guided by the Data Protection Act 2019 of Kenya, which tells us how to collect, process, store, and share the information. The information shall be collected, processed, stored, and shared for an explicitly defined purpose. So people are not supposed to just go to the ground and collect data for the sake of collecting. Our collecting of this data should be for a defined purpose. So when at the ground collecting data, I remember kitambo, we used to go to the field. You go to a baraza, you call people, you explain why you're collecting data, mnawambia pangeni laini, and then you start taking majina. Hiyo ni ukweli ama ni uongo? But what we do in the ESR is, as we go to the household, we usually tell the person why we are there. We seek their consent. Are you okay for us to take a picture of your face? Are you okay for us to take a picture of your household? And are you okay for us to take information about your household? And if they are not okay, we don't continue with the process. Then after collecting that, after notifying the person, we also tell them that the information being collected may be used by other parties. We've been told that the ESR is the central depository for the vulnerable. So this means that we are not the only persons going to use that data. Other social protection practitioners may come to us requesting for this data. So at the point of collection, we usually tell the subject that the information may be used by other parties for other interventions. Then for the storage, once we share this information with other parties, there are conditions that these other practitioners must follow. For instance, if you come to the single registry and you say you need data for 2 years or for 2 months, we usually request that after you've finished that period of 2 months, the data should be destroyed or you no longer use that data. Because in case that data is used or it does something that is not supposed to be done with the data, you're going against the regulation, you're going against what is supposed to be done. Again, we usually say that in case you feel like you want to use this data for more than that specified duration, you need to do another letter to ESR specifying that I'll use this data for another 2 years so that you're given that permission to continue using that data. After you've finished using that data, if it is in electronic form, it is usually said that you destroy it involving an IT officer, because you can't just go to a laptop and say you've deleted and that is it. That data has to be completely deleted by the help of an IT officer. And if it is in paper form, you make sure that relevant processes are followed to destroy that information. So sharing of information, usually tell our social protection practitioners or stakeholders that after we have shared this information with them, they're the custodians of this information. Saizi tunajua next year tunaenda kura, ukweli uongo. And the information we share sometimes has IDs and telephone numbers. Please don't use this information to share it to people that are not supposed to get this information. Let it be strictly shared, used for the purpose that it was requested for. Then the information processing, we say that reasonable steps shall be taken to ensure information process is accurate, up-to-date, and complete. Our data that we collect is usually accurate because we go to the ground, we go to the household. We take pictures of that household, and we make sure that it is updated through different mechanisms. Shaban has shown us 3, the complementary mechanism through APIs, and even the data collection itself. So we usually make sure that our data is up to date and that it is good for use for that purpose because it is accurate. And then appropriate technical and organization measures shall be taken to safeguard the data subject against unauthorized access, modification, tampering, unlawful destruction, accidental loss, improper disclosure, or undue transfer. So we also say that once a practitioner takes this data, they make sure that it is secure, it is safeguarded, and the privacy of our subjects is protected. Then access, we usually have a process in which you can follow when you want to access the data. I'm not talking about what is on the board now. Let me just tell you how you can access the data from ESR, and then I'll talk to what is on the board. So usually when you want to access data from the ESR, we usually say that you do a letter to the PS. But when you do a letter to the PS, it may take some time. If you have another contact besides the PS, you can copy that person for the person to follow up on the process. So the letter is done to the PS. After the letter is done and it is marked to our office, we usually send you a data sharing protocol. In the protocol, there are things you have to tick. Like you adhere to some things, and then you tell us what the data is and the purpose of that data. So there are fields you'll tick. After you've ticked those fields, you have signed. it comes back to us. The information is verified by an officer. Then from there, it is approved by the director, and then the information is processed and sent back to you. So that is the process. You write to the PS, we send you a data sharing protocol, you mark the fields that you want to be used, it comes back to us, it is approved, and then you get the data. This process usually takes at least, or a maximum of 10 days. So once we've done that, we usually say that data subjects have a right of access to their personal information. Once I have come to your house and taken your data, you have a right to come to the office and say, this and this has changed. Not only to the office, you can go to our website, you can go to our offices, we have offices across the country. You can go to those offices and say, our data has changed and would need this and this updated. You can also come to us and tell us you no longer want to be in the ESR. You have a right to, because nobody is forced to be in the ESR. So the ESR has data that can be accessed by all SP stakeholders for SP interventions. Data utilization, we've utilized this data across in many sectors. So I singled out just a few. For instance, the Directorate of Social Development, we have a unit called Economic Inclusion, whereby they go and give grants and help our beneficiaries graduate from just the handouts of being given by the government. So we have economic inclusion that they accessed our data of 8,000 persons. We have the National Drought Management Authority that accessed our data, 87,000. We are working with SHA. They have 450,000. The government is paying for some people money for SHA. And then we have the State Department of Housing. We've also worked with them. They have taken some data from us. We've worked with UNICEF. We've worked with Murang'a County. UNHCR, we have collected data for them for all the camps and settlements and urban refugees. We've worked with the Migori World Food Program, Kilifi, just to mention a few. And I want to mark out the DSA where all the persons get Inua Jamii. You can see the number is at 1.2 M. So we are not doing that badly. Then I just want to mention that Section 40 of the article establishes that a social protection registry is the central national database for social protection interventions in the country. So as much as other sectors have been collecting data and using the data separately, it is advised that going forward with the Act in place, any social protection intervention, data should be accessed from the registry. The law provides detailed provision and establishment, functions, management, updating, and data protection. I think that I've already talked to. The registry is also an inventory of vulnerable individuals in the household in the country, and the provisions formally anchor the ESR in the law. So we are not just saying that people should come. This is anchored in the law. The board will keep, maintain, and regularly update the registry. So as I've told you, it is now our mandate to keep, maintain, and regularly update. The board will undertake periodic registration of the vulnerable persons. This means that after some time, we have to go back to the field and take more people. Household could have changed. Those that were not willing to get into the registry before may want now to be in the registry. So periodically, we will keep going and registering persons in the field. The board will facilitate real-time update of changes through interoperability with other national registry. Currently, we are working with the National Bureau of IBR. Yes, the one that makes IDs. So once we get the IDs of these persons in need, we run it through the registry to tell us if that ID matches what we've been given, and to give us more information about that person. And also, it helps us know those people that are maybe alive and dead and such. So the board serves as an institutional custodian of social protection data systems. So we usually say that when any other social protection practitioner is on the ground. You must give us feedback on what you're doing on the ground. This way, we are able to know what is happening in what area, to avoid duplication, to avoid certain regions getting more help as compared to the others. So it is usually nice for any social protection practitioner to give the social protection, to give the board a feedback on what they are doing on the ground. The board is responsible for governance, oversight, coordination of the social protection registry. That is just what I'm trying to say. So when somebody wants to go to the ground, for instance, anataka kwenda Kibera kusaidia maybe the elderly persons in Kibera, maybe we have had helpage in Kibera, and then another, again, organization that wants to go and do the same thing in Kibera. So we usually say that, please, once you're doing something, let's try and update so that we make sure that we equalize across the country. Key functions with the National Social Board, it is to establish and maintain the social protection registry, ensure continuous data collection and disaggregation of data. I think it is just a repetition. Facilitate data sharing and interoperability among social protection systems. So we facilitate data sharing. You come, we give you data for the places you want to go and intervene. Strengthen coordination and integration of social protection information systems. I think that I've already talked to. So what this implies to the stakeholders, number one, it provides a clear legal framework for social protection data management. This means that we only have one place that will manage any data for social protection. Then it enhances coordination between national and county governments. We've worked with the county governments. We have county governments that are doing social protection interventions. And we are even in the process of merging the systems between the county and the government so that we know what is happening where, in which county, and at what time. So it supports evidence-based targeting and program planning. So by this we mean that somebody doesn't just go to the ground without prior planning. If I have data from the registry and I have information about a certain region, I will know how to go to those regions. So that is evidence-based and program planning. So strengthens accountability, transparency, and interoperability. So this is just an emphasis. We usually, We usually say that this single registry will strengthen accountability across all sectors of social protection. It also strengthens transparency and also strengthens interoperability. Nani anajua interoperability? Working. What is interoperability?
Yeah, they have very good connection.
Yes. Nani mwingine? I may
give an example that interoperability will be a situation where data from one organization or institution can be accessed by this other one, and the data from the other institution or several institutions in a group can be accessed from the different quarters and can be shared as well. They can share the data and also use the same data, working at some kind of what do we call it? Field, or rather, equal, all right. Sharing data among different institutions, yes.
You're very right. Okay. So it also improves preparedness and response during emergency and shocks. So the implication is, in case of any emergency or anything, you can always rest assured that you will get data for immediate response to any shock. I think that is it. Ai, ni kuchoka ama hamnipendi? Ni kuchoka ama hamnipendi?
We do it nicely, and because of that,
thank you.
No, the more I increase my tone, then you also raise the crowd. Because of that,